Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, 5 tips for building powerful 360-degree view supplier scorecards. We're just going to wait a couple of moments for everybody to load in. And just while we're doing that, I'm just going to make sure everything's working as it should as well. So bear with me. Okay, I think everything's working as it should as well. Wow, it's amazing to see so many people registered for today's session. I can see we've also got people dialing in from all over the world. We've got the UK, which is clearly where I'm based. We've got Germany, Sweden, Singapore, Malta. Who else we got here? The US, Ireland, Cyprus. This is great. Okay, just going to give it a couple of more moments. I know getting into these webinars is not always the easiest, so just going to give it a 1 or 2 moments for people to get loaded in to the session. Great. I think for those that aren't yet in the session, it has now just turned 1 minute past the hour. So I think it's right for everyone that we get started. For anyone that isn't in yet, they can look back at the recording and capture the first couple of moments. We'll start off with just a brief introduction. My name is Steve Middleton. I am the UK Growth Director for Kodiak Hub. It's an absolute pleasure to be hosting today's session. For those of you that don't know, at Kodiak Hub, we work with successful strategic buyers, procurement leaders all over the world that truly understand the power and impact of their role within the organization. Our technology enables them to form deeper buyer insights in the form of robust ratings and analytics. And we'll touch on some of this within our scorecard discussion today as we go through the webinar. But first, just want to go into some quick housekeeping. The first question I often get asked is, can I have a copy of the slides? You'll see at the top of your screen that this session is being recorded. And shortly after the session is complete, you will receive a copy of the recording, and this will of course include the slides. I expect the session to take no longer than around 30 to 35 minutes, depending on what questions we get through from you throughout the presentation. And of course, should you lose connection at all, please just click the original link. This will bring you straight back into the session, and you can refer back to the recording for any time that you might have missed. But most importantly, I want to make sure that this session is of most value to each and every one of you that's taken the time to join us today. So should you have any questions at all, feel free to share them using the Q&A tab in the bottom right-hand corner. And also the questions you're asking will be kept anonymous. So don't be afraid of what questions you're asking. We will decide at our end which ones are relevant for the conversation, but also which ones we might come back to you after the session. And Susanna, coming back to your point, yes, the recording will follow shortly after the session. But in case you need to leave early, that'll be fine. And it's also great to see we've got people from South Africa as well. So thank you for that, whoever posted that question or comment. So in terms of the agenda, I'm going to start off with a little bit of background. Why having smart scorecards gives you a critical advantage in this very competitive and complicated landscape. I'll then dive into the 5 tips of how to build powerful 360-degree view supplier scorecards. And I'll also show you a practical example of that within Kodiak Hub. I expect both of those sections to be completed within 20-25 minutes, and then we'll dive into the Q&A session. So like I say, please loading those questions into the Q&A tab, and we'll look to cover those off. And if we don't get time, because I'm conscious of your time, I'll make sure for any that we haven't covered during today's session, we will of course come back to you individually. So in terms of setting the scene and applying a little bit of background, I'd like to start with a quick analogy. In today's world, with the help of modern technology we're able to measure most things down to the smallest, most intricate part. In this example on your screen, you can see how a very simple application on a phone or even on a smartwatch enables an athlete to analyze every aspect of their run, from duration, distance, pace, heart rate, calories, even the elevation, and I'm sure there's much, much more in which they can measure. This data, importantly, allows the athlete to get quicker, stronger, smarter, understand their weaknesses, their strengths, the opportunities, the risks, and act on those insights immediately. Furthermore, and this is the bit that I really want to stress on, the really smart applications will actually take that data and make suggestions. Combined with the data from maybe your most recent run, from runs you've done previously, the app will make suggestions that will help to accelerate your progress, share best practices, maybe things we're not yet aware of, and ensure that we don't just keep on track, but we stay ahead of our goals and our aspirations. These apps are innovative, they're easy to use, they're visually impressive, automated, and take little or no maintenance. They're a far cry from one-dimensional stopwatches that we might have used 10, 15, 20 years ago when we're looking to measure the performance of our run. And it's really all about having the right data in the right place at the right time, much like a well-crafted scorecard. And I know, and I agree with you, whilst going for a run and negotiating £1,000,000, €, contracts aren't really in the same league, it seems crazy to me that we're able to analyze every stride we take in our morning run, yet when making $1,000,000, £1,000,000, euro buying decisions and investments, we rely on ERP systems and spreadsheets. It's crazy. And this leads me to my very first tip, which is we must all agree that we need to give up our Excel, our spreadsheets, kick them to the curb, if you like. And yes, I know some of you will say, but our spreadsheets are working for us. This might be the case, but I promise there is a better, smarter, more efficient, and more robust way to manage your suppliers. Using spreadsheets today is like an athlete measuring their morning run using a one-dimensional stopwatch. It works, but there is a better way. So let me expand. In today's purchasing landscape, the data that we need to support our purchasing decisions will come from various sources. When I speak to clients of Kodiak Hub, when I speak to prospective clients and I'm introducing them to our technology, they often talk about the challenge of siloed, scattered data. Trying to harness this critical data, this information effectively into spreadsheets or homegrown solutions becomes an almost impossible challenge. Stakeholder input is siloed, data sources are stagnant or not updated systematically, and visibly it's very poor due to lacking visualization, just to name a few. Whereas a modern supplier information solutions enable us to harness not just the information, but actually see everything in one view. And here are just some of the benefits that you can expect to experience with a modern supplier information management solution. You'll have your supplier data at a glance, better compliance in the supply chain, improved category management, operational efficiencies and team collaboration, stronger basis for supplier segmentation and classification. You have a more robust, balanced supplier view. So, to conclude my first tip, we must now agree that we need to give spreadsheets the boot. Ensure we have a robust supplier information management system in place that is not just in place, but is able to systematically manage all of your supplier data in one view. Now, I want to let you know that I'm not going to do this at the end of every tip. Please don't worry. But I would like to launch a very quick poll because it will be useful for me to understand, what tools or tool are you currently using today when creating supplier scorecards? So if I can just get you all, I'm going to launch this poll now. So again, it should come at the center of your screen. So again, what I'm asking is, what tools are you currently using when creating supplier scorecards? Are you, one, we use Excel, Word, Google Sheets, and or similar. Two, we use legacy suites such as SAP Ariba, Coupa, and I could name others. You have your own homegrown solution. We use best of breed SRM platforms like Kodiak Hub, or actually, we don't use supplier scorecards at all. And that's maybe one of the reasons why you're on this call. Once you've selected which ones you want to choose, just simply press submit vote, and that will come through. Just going to give it a couple of seconds for everybody to complete this. Please, as many of you can, complete this, because it's really useful insight. And it's clear as well. Tip one will be a shock to a lot of you, because I know I can see here most of you, in fact, over 50% of you are saying that you're still using supplier scorecards. Okay, so I'm going to pull the poll down, I said with a degree of confidence here. So I'm going to close that down. I believe that's now gone from your screen. And we're going to move on into tip two. And this is what I'm really passionate about. Introducing a rating methodology. A rating methodology is going to provide you with two critical advantages. There's many more, but the two that I really want to focus on today is, number one, speed and efficiency. You no longer need to review every line of data when you have a rating methodology, analyze every report and screen every response. With a rating methodology, it's going to automate a huge amount of your manual work and make it much, much easier for you when reviewing and adding, again, rules to a supplier. Number two, it becomes your stop-go. Based on automated algorithms, a rating methodology will tell you whether you should, one, stop and investigate with a supplier, two, proceed with caution, or three, go for it. And I want to show you a couple of very quick examples. And in fact, these are shots taken directly from our solution. Here you can see a typical supplier scorecard. Again, this is an extract from Kodiak Hub, and you'll see I've numbered it 1, 2, and 3. And if we just go through these in order, if you look at number 1, which is in it, again on our solution, it's your global supplier rating. This becomes your stop go. Does this supplier are they above or below the line? Do they meet your acceptance criteria? Depending on what that looks like, you might then go to number 2, which is the rating areas. And in this example, we're looking at safe source, which is country-related risk, so the environment in which that supplier is exposed to. You've also got performance, really important when evaluating suppliers, their performance. Yes, you might have your SLAs in terms of what you've agreed. Let's make sure they're performing against those. So again, you can see those here. And then number 3, you've got your sustainable practices. And you can see here very clearly that we've circled this one because this is the one area that this supplier is falling back on. So maybe you click on that and it opens up the subcategories within that chosen area. And from here, you can clearly see with the 2 lines, the 2 red lines, there are 2 areas that might be of greater concern to you with this supplier. And there's a number of ambers as well. But my point is, and actually with our solution, you could actually delve into those red areas and it will tell you the source of that data. But again, we'll go into that when we get to the demonstration. But what I'm trying to tell you is that we're no longer reviewing hundreds and hundreds of lines of ever-changing data. With the help of a rating methodology, you are laser focused on just the areas that need your attention. Furthermore, you can build in typifications, notifications, so that no risk or opportunity gets missed. And for me, that's one of the most important elements, because this is working in the background even when you're not in the scorecard, even when the supplier could be the furthest point away from your mind, because we're collating this information consistently. Maybe it's an assessment that's been automated and gone out that you don't even know about. But as a result of what we've captured, it creates a notification. It impacts the ratings. Again, you get notified, so nothing gets missed. A second example. Here we've got a typical assessment. However, this time is combined with a rating methodology. And again, I've done the same 3 stages. You've got in the top right-hand corner, the overall assessment rating. Does this meet your acceptance criteria? Yes, no, stop, go. Then you go into number 2. You've got the rating areas. We've broken the assessment down, in this case, to what, 2, 4, 6, 7 different rating areas. Each of those has a number and a color. So you can see I've highlighted here an orange section under health and safety. So again, maybe you want to investigate a little bit more rather than just saying, no, it's an investigation. But then that leads me on to point 3. Regardless of what ratings have been occurred, there might be certain elements which are complete non-acceptance for you. So in this example, you'll see there's a red box around that rating area, which is compliance and governance. And when you click into that, you can see that they've said no to accepting your code of conduct. So regardless of their rating, that might be a non-starter, but because of the rating methodology, because of the notifications that you're able to pull in, you are identified it without having to go through every single question, every single response. You have the information front of house in front of you. So to conclude on this section, your life as a procurement sourcing or supply chain practitioner is already complex. Contract negotiations are comprehensive. They are time consuming. Supply chain risks are greater than ever. So whether it's numerical, percentages, red, amber, green, a combination of all 3, ratings offer simplicity. I am not suggesting that you should reduce the complexities of supplier transparency, supplier risk, compliance, relationships, and performance. What I am suggesting is that by adopting a framework, a systematic process, a technology for supplier ratings, it will help you and your procurement team to buy safer, smarter, and more sustainable. Which leads me nicely onto tip number 3, which is talking about the alignment with KPIs, goals, and targets. We often say at Kodiak Hub, you cannot achieve a goal without first setting a goal. Furthermore, we say you cannot manage what you cannot measure. KPIs, targets, acceptance criteria are the foundation to any supplier rating, which makes them one of the pillars for powerful supplier scorecards. And if we move on to this next slide, I want to start here because maybe this is an opportunity for those of you that don't have a structure in place, for those of you that are just doing what you've always done. Please use this now as the opportunity to just stop and ask yourself, are we asking the right questions? Are we capturing the right data, meaningful data that's going to have an impact? Really? Or are we just doing what we've always done? Has it gone from a 10 question questionnaire or assessment to now being 35, 40, 50, 100, 200, 300 questions just because we keep loading stuff in? Is there any of that that's no longer relevant? Because remember, garbage data in, garbage data out. The other important factor that we now need to be mindful of is that survey fatigue amongst suppliers is a real challenge. One of the reasons why our response rates are so much greater than the averages, I think it's around 85, 86% within 2 weeks of an assessment going live with our suppliers, is because not just do we make it really easy, but it's because we help our customers to make sure we're aligned on asking the right questions at the right time. So it's only relevant to those suppliers. So again, please use this as an opportunity to review that. Once you're clear, here are 3 steps that we recommend when looking to create the perfect evaluation of your suppliers. And it starts again with number 1, aligning with the organization and those involved on the key performance indicators. Be crystal clear on the criteria, the parameters that you want to measure in your supplier evaluation. Now, this might sound obvious, but trust me, having seen thousands of evaluations throughout my time at Kodiak Hub, and as a team collectively at Kodiak Hub, it is not always as clear as it should be. Point 2, objectives, goals, targets. What is the desired performance of the supplier? Because again, understanding that will help you not just in terms of how you write the question, but also how you measure the response. And that leads me on to number 3, your acceptance criteria. Determine what is the minimum and maximum output that you're willing to accept and stick to it, because these become your stop goes. This is what's there to simplify. It's not a case of putting a methodology in place, then ignoring it and reading every question anyway. Be really clear. Now, KPIs will vary depending on industry, size of company, size of supplier, category, type of supplier, etc. The list could go on. But with that said, please don't just measure delivery and cost. They're not the only dimensions that matter, okay? You should, of course, be measuring those as well, but look outside the box. And again, for anybody that's got any questions, we can help you with that as well. And in fact, here on your screen now, you can see a list of just some of the areas that we help our suppliers when it comes to measuring KPIs. And, you know, there will be additional parameters. We maybe go more granular on some of these KPIs, so such as supply chain and delivery performance. We could include whether it's international or domestic, on time in full, so OTIF, or lead times, etc. But again, going back to my previous comment, if you are stuck or wish to know more about how to rate specific areas, then please feel free to get in touch. We have a vast library that is growing of over 6,000 proven best practices that we've built up over time that we, again, very happy to help you with. So to conclude on this tip, tip 3, align with KPIs and goals. Start with the end in mind. And then really it's about just being crystal clear of what KPIs you're measuring and what you're willing to accept as an organization. Tip number 4, and this is one that I'm really passionate about, okay? Communication. If you want to build powerful supplier scorecards, then you're going to require collaboration from internal stakeholders and supplier stakeholders. At all times, we must think about how we're communicating. Because I can tell you all the statistics, and we're not here to present these today, but we can. All the statistics show that the stronger the relationship you have with your supplier or stakeholder, the greater their performance, the more accurate their response, the more considered their response will be. A lack of clarity in a communication will create misunderstandings. And you can imagine this will mean that they may invest a huge, considerable amount of time providing you with data that is completely irrelevant and of no value to you. Ultimately, this is frustrating for both parties, you, the stakeholder, or the supplier. So 3 parties, I guess. And remember, a person's perception, and this is really important, a person's perception is their version of reality. Doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. A person's perception is their version of reality. The good news is that every day, we as individuals and organizations have the opportunity to set the foundation of how we're going to be perceived. And how we're being perceived will impact how that supplier, stakeholder responds to your requests. So to conclude this very short section, again, it might be short, but it's an area that I'm incredibly passionate about when it comes around to communication. What I would say is that remember the 7 C's of effective communication. And if you don't have these or you've not heard of these before, just Google it and they'll come up in various forms. But this is be clear, concise, concrete, correct, complete, courteous, and considered. These are 7 things that I thought about when pulling today's session. I wanted to make sure I hit each of those 7, and I'm not saying I've done it perfectly, and I'd love your feedback of where we can improve on these sessions, particularly around the way that we communicate. But the other important factor that I always add in when it comes to communication is it should feel effortless. If you're sending out communications to your stakeholders and suppliers, and they need to log into something in order to respond, that doesn't feel effortless for me. That's a barrier. So again, something to think about when you're creating really powerful communications. And then this leads me on to tip number 5. And I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to go through this really quickly. Holistic mindset. At Kodiak Hub, we're obviously big believers in building powerful 360-degree view supplier scorecards. Supplier scorecards and profiles give our customers a control center to absorb a lot of information and insights to make better buying decisions. What makes Kodiak's recipe for supplier scorecards special is our obsession with having this holistic mindset. And to expand on that a little bit more, when at Kodiak, we focus on providing our users with a broad scope of buying insights by pulling data from 3 core sources. You can see here, this is what we call the trifactor. Number 1, external supplier feedback and internal stakeholder feedback. Incredibly important. Number 2, third-party data providers and market intelligence. And then number 3, APIs to existing business ecosystems, your ERP solutions, etc. We're not interested in reinventing the wheel here at Kodiak Hub. What we're interested in is providing our customers with a vehicle to source smarter. So to conclude, before we get into the demonstration, which I'm really keen to showcase for you on this section here, the areas seen on your screen right now, and feel free to take screenshots, but like I say, this will come through on the recording as well, include just some of the core areas that we showcase for our clients in our scorecards. And this, I think, is a perfect segue for me to now open up Kodiak Hub, showcase really what a powerful 360-degree view supplier scorecard looks like. And of course, throughout doing so, cover off the 5 aforementioned tips that we've covered today. I'll then come back and we will also dive into the Q&A session. So without further ado, let me just switch over to the solution. Like I said before, please, if you have any questions relative to what we're talking about today, I can see questions are flooding in, but keep them coming through and we will come to those at the very last section of the session. So hopefully you can now all see a scorecard. First of all, welcome to the solution. This is the Kodiak Hub portal, and I'm just going to show you a very small part of what is possible through our solution. And obviously this is relative to that 360-degree view supplier scorecard. So in front of you now, you can see the supplier scorecard. As I go through this, you're going to see how importantly, it's about pulling all relevant data, information, communication, documentation into one view. It's very quick, very easy, it's very accessible, it's visually, like those apps, the running apps, visually very powerful. Top here, you've got some very basic information. So again, we know the company, we know there's only flagging, whether that supplier is approved. And at the top right-hand corner here, we've got a credit score and we've got a global rating. For the purpose of today's presentation, I'm going to focus on this global rating. This is your stop go, as per the example I gave you earlier in the presentation. And from here, because this is calculated based on what we call the 3 pillars of health, you know, the safe source, country-related risk, the performance of that supplier, and the practices, the sustainable practices of that supplier. From here, again, within this scorecard, it should be very organic. You can click a link. You can find the data sources that sit behind each of those rating areas. Again, if we look at sustainable practices, in this example, those same 2 areas which are highlighted as red, we can quickly click on that and you can see that, again, this is that same example that we used in the presentation where we can see they've got a score of 0 because they do not accept your code of conduct. That's naturally impacted their rating. And from here, actually, you can start to see historical values. You can also see how it's performed as a chart over time. Again, having this, getting yourself out of spreadsheets is just going to automate a huge amount of that operational stuff you have to do when it comes to calculating risks and should we, shouldn't we? And again, sometimes it's pick a number out the air and go with it or make a decision. This is going to give you a much more holistic view, but also visual that you can share with others within the business. If we scroll down on there, you can also see every single assessment that's been carried out, every audit, every evaluation that's been carried out that's relevant to this supplier is captured in one view. You can actually seek or search those. Let's look at this top example. This is an internal evaluation of Microsoft, which is rated relevant to Project Beta. Now, this is all obviously artificial data, but to give you an example, we know Project Beta was given an overall performance score of 83%. In fact, if I open that, I can go into that overall performance score. But what I might actually want to do is open it out. I can see that to achieve that overall score, we use 3 stakeholders. Clearly, Marlin in fact, Marlin is our founder and CEO here at Kodiak Hub. But just as the example, Marlin has a very different view to that of Ella. So why is that? Well, maybe I want to dive into that report. And you can see here that there's an area that's in the amber under collaboration. So you dive in here, you scroll down, and you can see there's an average one here. Supplier response time, is now average compared to maybe where it was. Okay, right. Well, let's go back. So what does that mean? Maybe you want to have some dialogue with the customer, with that supplier. Again, this is all happening within your supplier scorecard. It's the functionality you get with a supplier information management system. You can now maybe start a conversation, call it response time needs improving. Okay, give it some bodies, a description. Now, as a result of an internal review, we've identified that your response times have dropped. You no longer meet our SLAs. Right. Okay. When do you want to get a response back from the supplier? Well, I want it by this time next week. Okay, great. Any documentation, maybe a copy of your SLAs, some background, press send. Going back to my point before, communication should feel effortless. So don't send them communication via a portal, okay? Because you have to log into that. What ours will do is send them an email. It'll be almost instant. On that email, there'll be a link, which they have to, again, no login required. When they view that communication, this is what they'll see. They'll see what you've typed up here on the left-hand side in terms of the case, and you'll be able to see any dialogue that's gone back and forth. They can contribute towards that dialogue. Submit the comment. It'll come back to you. It'll email you or whoever's driven that conversation to let you know there's been a response to that dialogue. I'll just delete that to keep it clean. But equally, again, you can go back and forth with that conversation. Really simple. Really powerful. That email landing was exactly that. In fact, I can show you. Here we go. You can see that. So, and then going back here, then beyond this as well, you've got all the documentation. When you're asking for ISOs, when you're asking for contracts, when you're asking for product information, again, you want to consolidate that into one supplier view. Equally, we host expiry dates. Not only will the supplier load the document in for you, not only will we scan check that document for you, we'll also capture the expiry date. And guess what? Building typifications, notifications. You can see here what this organic supplier scorecard is doing is taking away that operational stuff, the operational burden, and we're sending you notifications of things that are relevant and important. You might decide that that notification goes straight to the supplier. Your contract's about to expire or your certificate's about to expire in 3 weeks. Please update and provide us a new one. If they do so, it'll just automatically update the document. I'm conscious of time and I want to get to your Q&A. As you can see here, there's so much more. We can do things like financial information in one screen. These are financial ratings as well. So no longer having to download and review, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of accounts. Again, 7 critical areas that are rated in a supplier scorecard. Safe source premium, things like sanctions, PEPs, politically exposed individuals, again, all collated in one. Think of the convenience of this. How many departments you have to go to in order to capture information. Suddenly now, again, when you're making those buying decisions, when you're deciding whether you should accept or decline a supplier, having all that in one view. You've got things like, again, linked companies, CCJs. You can click into different people's information. It's a great tool for doing exactly that. Like I say, I just wanted to give you a very quick introduction into what's possible using a supplier scorecard. Of course, again, there is much, much more to our solution, but equally, this is all about supplier scorecards. So going back now into the presentation here, let's just move on. I want to just round out with this. Okay, so I hope that this session has been useful, and we'll get to the Q&A in a moment. Today, we've covered off a lot in a very short period of time, just 5 tips of how to build what we perceive as being really powerful, meaningful 360-degree view supplier scorecards. We've looked at the importance to move away from the manual spreadsheets, approach, point 2, approach with the end in mind, be crystal clear around those KPIs, those goals, those targets. 3, introducing a rating methodology. 4, the 7 C's of effective communication and how we're being perceived by our suppliers. And number 5, that holistic mindset, capturing all that data and really crunching that down, cooking that data to just the one number. And as a result of that initial poll that I launched, over 50% of you are still trapped in those spreadsheets. So I guess for those of you that's relevant, we have a choice. Do we A, continue with our one-dimensional stopwatches and spreadsheets, or do we make that move? Take advantage of the modern apps, solutions that are out there to help drive greater supplier insights and deliver a more powerful 360-degree view scorecard. The choice is yours. Now, again, just finally, before we dive into the Q&A session, I'd like to invite you to join again for any of you that have any questions or would like to know more about Kodiak Hub. I'd like to invite you to book a call with our team. So I'm going to put in front of you a link of which you can click, which I'm just doing now, so forgive me. And then here we go. I'm going to launch that now. That link will take you straight, if you just click book now on your screen, it will take you straight through to a calendar. And from that calendar, you can schedule a meeting with me or my team here at Kodiak Hub. And then, so I guess without further ado, I'd now like to dive into your questions. I'm going to leave that link up for you as well. I see we've got lots of questions. We are slightly over time. We're 6 minutes over time, but I think we just spend another 5 minutes on this. Hopefully we can answer most of the questions that you need to respond to. So with that said, I'm going to read these as we go through them. Are there any action plan proposals generated by the tool? This is from Kigdom Azula. Forgive my pronunciation, Kigdom. Yes, of course. Not only that, at Kodiak Hub, we believe in humanizing the exceptional. And actually, a lot of, yes, you're buying our technology, but you're also buying our expertise. So what we recommend to any of our clients is, of course, yes, there will be triggers and examples thrown to you through the solution, but just speak with us. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Florence Steer, does Kodiak Hub have the ability to track on-time deliveries and create a score? If so, how flexible is it to integrate with existing ERP solutions? In fact, the question of connecting with ERP is coming through a lot. The first thing is, yes, of course, there's no limit really to what data that we can monitor, record, rate. If it's a property, we could put a rating against it. And if we could put a rating against it, we can also put notifications against it. It just determines on where we then get that data from. Is it hard data that we're pulling from your existing ecosystem? Is it data we're collecting through the ability of using assessments and, whether that be internal or external, or through other means? But yeah, absolutely, we can integrate with ERP solutions. And just so you know, Florence, there are 3 levels of integration depending on the complexity of what you need. Paolo, another great question, a very important one. Do you share this with the suppliers? A question could be, if we are still on RFP stage, just with the first proposals, how can we fill in or develop the scorecard as you presented? In the end, we have just the price and possibly a quick presentation pitch. So again, Paolo, we're not a sourcing solution. I just want to be really clear on that. We are a supplier relationship management solution. So we're the stage post sourcing. With that said, a lot of our customers use our technology for RFQs, RFPs, RFIs, and you can actually build in a rating methodology based on the questions that you're asking of a supplier, which means that, again, you don't need to look at every line of information and data. And Paolo, I've got some examples I could show you, so feel free to book a call, a session with us if that's something that's of interest to you, and I can show you how our solution can do that. But you also have full control. I mean, one of the things that I probably haven't been clear on with our solution is that, yes, we have a library of best practices and questions that you can utilize, but also at the same time, you can create your own questions, apply your own ratings, take our questions and adapt the ratings to meet your exact criteria. Because one of the biggest difference between, if you're really looking to create these 360-degree powerful scorecards, there are data houses out there that will provide you with information. They're the third-party specialists that we speak about, that we often integrate into our solution. They're fine, but it's very rare that A, their rating matches your ratings in terms of importance, and B, that they're able to provide you 100% of what you need. So again, Kodiak Hub, using the assessments and the evaluations, enables us then to fill the gaps. I've got another 18 questions here to pick from, but I'm going to just pick one final question, and then for everybody else, I promise I'll come back to you individually. I'm sorry we haven't been able to do much, but I'm already again 10 minutes over the time that I promised in terms of delivering of this webinar. And the final question is, how long do I need to create a 360-degree scoring card? Well, the reality is, depends on where you're seeking the data from, but ultimately it can be very, very quick. With our solution, as soon as you enter the company name and a reference number or a VAT registration number, you're already starting to drive scores. You're already getting country-related data. We're already getting financial data. We're going to automate as much of that as we can. And then click of a button, you can send out an onboarding assessment to a supplier where you're capturing other information. Or again, if it's an existing supplier, it's in your ecosystem, we're pulling data in from your existing ecosystem. So again, how long do you need to create a scorecard? It can be minutes, even seconds, to start getting a good picture of a supplier. But equally, that depends on where you're capturing that information from. We are right out of time. So thank you, everybody that's taken the time to join me today. I really do hope this has been a useful session. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of your questions. Like I say, I will be coming back to you individually to address the ones that we didn't get to cover off. And of course, I hope we have the opportunity to maybe meet with some of you that we've not spoken to before, although there are a lot of very familiar faces here. So thank you for taking the time, and best of luck to everybody out there creating your version of that 360-degree view supplier scorecard. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.